Welcome to the stream, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hopefully pretty good. Looks like I'm about a minute late, but I had to set everything up and actually get it moving. So, here we are. Exciting. So I'm going to do a question and answer, which means don't expect a game. If you're really looking for a game, you're not going to get one. And that's just how it is. I got a lot of good questions on Facebook. And I know I got some here on YouTube as well. Let me make sure I get the chat up so I can actually see them when they come up. And just looking. All right, let me put this on my main channel. Let's edit that. Although I do like having the Syndra ability mechanics preview up. All right, there we go. So what is there to say? Kind of boring. Actually, I have a lot of good questions here. Unfortunately, I didn't organize the questions, so I'm going to be going back and forth on some of these. I didn't organize them, which means I've got a lot of good questions that are about League of Legends and a lot of good questions that are not about League of Legends, but they're divided. So I have to like skim through my notepad here. That's, yeah, exciting stuff, I know. And in the background, we will have something very exciting, which probably won't be exciting at all for anybody. Yeah, it's going to be really boring, I'll be honest. In fact, let's go ahead and Argon Prime, let's jump here, and then while we're here, take me to Home of Light. 10%. I know, exciting stuff. I'm just getting it set up. I've got a lot of questions to answer for you guys. So I want something that'll passively play, which is the definition of playing this game. This is X3, by the way. But this isn't going to be a stream about X3. Don't worry. This is a stream about League of Legends and general other stuff.
Entering system, Argon Prime.
Yeah, here are all my... Well, here's a good chunk of space stations. All the green stuff is mine, which isn't a whole lot. Wow, this is really boring. Anyway. Can I get this down? No. I have a brilliant idea. There we go. All right, there we go. So anyway, questions. Why don't you play Dominion? This was actually one that was not asked on Facebook, but it was asked before I ended the stream earlier today. So the main thing is I'm not a big fan of Dominion, personally. It's just not very exciting to me. It's kind of like I really enjoy a game similar to Dota, and that's why I play League of Legends, is because it's similar to Dota. Dominion is basically a Arathi base, and I didn't really like Arathi base and all that much. But most of it is, so that's most of it. I just don't personally enjoy it. It also has just a trivial following. I actually just saw something on Reddit the other day, which analyzed how many people were playing, each thing over a 38-hour period. I don't remember if it was Elo Buff or who, but anyway, it was just on Reddit. It was pretty cool. If you will follow the League of Legends Reddit, you probably already saw this. Dominion has a trivial following in terms of the people who actually play it. It's, if I remember correctly, even smaller than Twisted Treeline, which surprised me to see that, given that Twisted Treeline is, I don't know, they've never really advertised it in the years I've been playing it, and Dominion they had this huge launch event for. So anyway, Summoner's Rift is, I don't know, I'd take a guess about 70% of all games played are played on Summoner's Rift, if not more, but that's a guess, and Twisted Treeline then takes up the next biggest chunk, and then the Dominion, yeah, Dominion comes in last. So, there you go. Whatever that means. I'm just giving you guys information on the Dominion following. Not really meaning to diss on anybody who likes Dominion. Please don't take it that way, but I don't really enjoy it, plus not many people care about it, so I don't think it'd be very entertaining to put together. Ravis. This is from Facebook. Ravis, option on starting an esports career in League of Legends. So, I don't So I'm not sure if you're talking about like yourself or whether it's a good idea or anything, or if you're speaking specifically about me, just because of the wording of it. I'm not totally sure on what you mean. But what I will say is I don't think it's ever a good idea for people to invest their time solely into esports. There are a very small number of people who can actually get away with it, who are actually that good. The money that you actually earn off esports is trivially small compared to money you can earn by doing other things related to it. And I'm talking about if you're in like the 99.5% of players who are involved in esports, they're not making much. It's only those top few teams that you see winning tournaments over and over and over again. Those are the only teams that are actually making any significant money out of doing the tournament circuits. I don't think there's even a huge market for that. I don't want to say esports is never going to get big, because obviously it will on some level get big over time. I think it's going to be a big thing 20 years from now. Obviously, it's a big thing right now, but I do think the current model for how people are approaching esports is a little ridiculous. People are approaching esports the way they approach traditional sports and events, and like MLG and these companies are really going all the way to invest into making sure it's just like a professional sports team, go all the way, maybe ESPN it in the future is the whole goal. Get all these partnerships with companies. I don't think the money is actually there, even in the midterm, not just the short term. The short term, the money is definitely not there to support really huge esports. You look at a lot of the esports investment, it's coming directly from Riot. That's usually, I mean, it's not a horrible sign. I'm happy they're investing into esports. I'm happy they're investing in the health of their game. But when the company producing the game is providing most of the money for it, that means people are realizing, at least advertisers are realizing, that they're not getting their money's worth by sponsoring teams or sponsoring these events. And especially when you have a lot of people who are just kind of screwing around at these events anyway. So looking at the ARAM that was played at the end of the MLG event, I don't have anything against ARAM. I think that was pretty cool, but I do think that there was a huge disconnect between what MLG was aiming for and obviously what actually happened. So the players are there to have fun. That's good. But I just don't think there's a whole lot in there for you to really invest. Well, it's the same thing for traditional sports anyway, right? Like, even though there's these huge sports teams, there's NFL, there's NHL, all this stuff, NBA, all this stuff. Unless you're really genuinely in that top level, you don't want to get invested in it, because that's not where the money is going to be. You want to have a career beyond that. And you look at a lot of these people who get a lot of money, and I'm going to tie this into a second comment here. You look at a lot of the people who get a lot of this money, especially in professional sports, but esports as well, and they wind up just wasting it. They get huge amounts of money, huge sums of money, and then it's gone quickly. So let me go ahead and tie that into the next point is somebody will always come along who's better than you. Over time, somebody will always come along who is better than you. I think there's only a few professional athletes we can all remember who, and I'm talking about athletes, but obviously the same thing in esports, but I'm talking about athletes because it's just a bigger venue right now. There's only a few people that are really legends, right? You're not talking about many. And even they've been beaten in some respects. So you look at like the Michael Jordan. Well, everybody knows Michael Jordan. Maybe not as much now, but 10 years ago, everybody knew Michael Jordan. Things like that. So, I don't know. If you're going to do it, it's good to pursue. It's not something you want to give up, you don't want to give up on a dream of being good at esports or, making it big. But be realistic. Don't give up on school. Don't do things like that. That's what I'd say. Anyway, as far as starting, if you meant that question directly at me, opinion on starting an esports career in League of Legends. Yeah, I'm not good enough. I mean, I'll be very, very frank. I am not a professional player in that sense. I'm a professional player in the sense that I make money off of video games, but I'm not a professional player in the sense of I'm that good. Nowhere near that good. So I consider myself a decent player who has a good mechanical understanding of the game, can do pretty well in a lot of settings, but yeah. I know my limitations. I'll tell you some of my limitations right off the bat. My actions per minute is very low compared to these pros. You look at some of these pros and their actions per minute. Actions per minute is literally the number of clicks that you're doing, and not just clicks, but actually coherent clicks you're doing. So you're moving your champion around a lot. You're always on your toes. You're doing this stuff. I've seen APMs. I think they go, hundreds is what you're looking at, just hundreds of actions per minute. Mine's not that high. So it's higher than a lot of people because I've been practicing for a long time, but I don't aim to be like that amazing of a pro. Not that I wouldn't be happy to, but take it for what it is. So, that was a League of Legends question. Well, it's actually a couple. Next question. So this one's actually related to X3, and this is going to be the only thing I answer about X3, but because I've talked about it, a bunch of people have apparently bought the game, which is good. I'm happy about that. So I'm just going to answer this question really quick. So X3 is a game you're seeing in the background. All you're watching is me flying through space kind of blindly. And actually, let me change my camera, because this is really boring. Also, I have the slowest ship on the planet. Not on the planet, in the universe. And not really, but still pretty slow. It's a Destroyer Class 2. Now we have a planet for you guys to look at. And the clouds even move, and so does the world. Anyway, I just bought X3, having starting troubles. I have the Terran Conflict and Albion Prelude. What do you suggest to learn the game? Okay, so I started the game originally as Argon Commander and Albion Prelude. That went pretty well. I'll just give you a few quick bullet points. When I really wanted to learn the game and really wanted to play, which I did kind of a week ago or a week and a half ago, restarted as a humble merchant in Argon. Yeah, I think you start in Argon Prime or Heron's Nebula, actually. So as soon as you start the game, go south a couple sectors until you reach Ore Belt. You're going to look for stations that are selling ore. There are a few mining colonies that are selling ore for less than 60 credits usually. And you can take as much ore as you possibly can, which isn't that much early on, but as much as you possibly can, and find sectors nearby, or even the sector you're in will buy for 100 credits or more. So that's the best thing you can do right off the bat to earn yourself a little bit of money. It's not huge, but it's enough to get started. As soon as you can afford it, you want to get a passenger transport. Those are TP class ships. You can't just get any ship. Well, technically you can, but it's really hard to outfit them, especially early in the game. As soon as you can, you want to get a passenger transport. This is how I played. It's not necessarily how you want to play. But what I did is I got a passenger transport, and then I started doing the missions that people will randomly offer you to take somebody so-and-so from such and such a station to such and such a station, and they pay a lot of credits. They're hard to do. You want to get a docking computer when you can. The parent sell that. If you want to Google that, you can. Anyway, you want a docking computer when you can, when you're doing passenger transports, because that lets you instantly dock, so you can use the autopilot to dock and still be able to instantly dock once you're near. Makes it easier. Speed on the ship is huge. But anyway, the only thing I'm going to say beyond that, and I'm going to move away from X3 now, Google is your friend for this game. Google is a huge, huge help. There's X1, I don't remember the original, but there's X, X2, and then there's Terran Conflict, Reunion, and Albion Prelude. If you're playing Albion Prelude, make sure that you're reading a thread related to Albion Prelude, or at the very least related to Terran Conflict. You don't want to be doing like Reunion stuff, because a lot of that information is just not correct. Because X3, the iterations have made huge changes, each of them. So a lot of people say X3 Terran Conflict is better than Albion Prelude, but the downside is Terran Conflict's graphics are a lot worse. So Albion Prelude, I just want to play it because it's pretty minor differences. There's story differences, a couple other things. But honestly, I want the game to look good, and this game does look good on Albion Prelude. So anyway, there's a new game coming out soon, at some point maybe, called X Rebirth, which is technically X4. So it's the next huge launch for their game. We'll see how that goes. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Joseph, why'd we name our baby Logan? Yeah, it's pretty simple. We looked at traditional Irish names. There were a lot of good ones, but we really fell in love with the name Logan. So I'm very Irish, and yeah, we weren't just looking at Irish names, but that happened to be the one that we really liked. Logan was a good name. So nothing to do with X-Men, nothing to do with anything like that. But a good name. Okay, Garrett. Would you ever consider streaming Dota 2 or Han gameplay like that one time League was offline? So I want to, but my time is very, very limited. And I mentioned this probably 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 1 or 2 times a week. My time that I actually have to get stuff done is not as big as I wish it were. A lot of these projects that I do, a lot of the video projects, just take up a lot of time. Even the small stuff, like the Champion Minis, I have to do several iterations of the Champion Minis to get them to where I want them to be, get them as short as I want them to be. There's a lot of editing involved, even for a 20-second video, so I'm also trying to pump out these 10-minute don't feed videos, things like that. I just don't really have a lot of time, but I do totally support Dota as a game, and Dota 2 as a game, and Valve obviously I support as well. Same with Heroes of Newerth. I really enjoyed Heroes of Newerth. I think they're fantastic. I'm not a fanboy in the sense of I think that League of Legends is the best. These ones suck. I do find League of Legends to be the most fun for me. I also find that most of my friends play League of Legends and actually continually want to play League of Legends. Whereas for Heroes of Newerth, one of the things I found is a lot of my friends stopped wanting to play Heroes of Newerth. A lot of my friends stopped wanting to play Dota 2 or just weren't very interested in Dota 2 because of their experiences with Heroes of Newerth. Yeah, so I think League of Legends has more to offer. We'll see. I hope Dota 2 does well. I do. I think they've got some good innovation. I think they've lit a fire under Riot that has caused Riot to really rush out a lot of very good improvements to the game, and I'm happy about that. They're a good influence to have, so... Anyway... Dexter, do you have any affiliation with Tankspot anymore? None at all. I haven't for years. And, yeah, I mean, I'm still very proud of what I accomplished while I was running the site. For those who don't know, Tankspot, World of Warcraft MMO website, I created that and ran basically every part of it until I sold it to Zam Networks a couple years ago. So, yeah, that's all. And, yeah, I have no affiliation at all with Tankspot, so... Dana, any update on the potential Twitch streaming? So I talked about streaming on Twitch as a potential thing. I don't see any impediments to that, but I am going to be contacting Twitch. There's a couple things I want to make sure about the contract before I sign it for their side of it. And then YouTube, I have to worry about their side too. But we'll see. I guess the best thing I can say is we'll see. I'm still moving forward with it as long as there's no like exclusivity requirements on Twitch's part, which I don't think there are, but I do want to make sure. If there's exclusivity requirements, I won't move to Twitch. Exclusivity meaning if Twitch tells me that I can only stream on Twitch, as far as their premium, as far as offering paid, not paid, but premium content with advertisements and all that stuff. If they tell me that, I obviously won't go with them. I'd prefer to stay with YouTube. What I want to make sure is that I have an option on the table, and I don't expect them to do that, but that's just the email exchange going on. If I stream on Twitch, I will also be streaming on YouTube. There's no question that I will continue streaming on YouTube. The only question is whether I will expand to stream on other platforms. Okay. Alex, Alex has 3 questions that I wanted to add or answer here. So, what microphone do you use, and would you recommend it for others? Audio Technica AT2020. Yeah, that's the microphone right there. And I'd recommend it to others. I did a lot of research. There's a couple competitors that are pretty good, so nothing bad to say about them. But I definitely... It's fantastic. It's been fantastic. I mean, I don't always I don't calibrate it per stream. So sometimes it's a little closer, sometimes a little further away. And that can really distort the sound quality. If I turn it to the side, because it is I believe a cardioid is the word. If I turn it to the side, the sound quality should get distorted a little bit. So yeah. Anyway, I do try to make sure it's good for the don't feeds and get my little pop filter, which my son has been playing with, and it's actually pretty far away now. Get the pop filter and everything out. But yeah, Audio Technica AT2020, fantastic microphone. It's a little pricey, but it's what you get. I mean, you get a high-quality product. What video editing software do you use? Adobe Premiere Pro CS6. I've been using Premiere Pro for several years now, 3 or 4 years now. I love it. I absolutely love it, but it's very expensive, as all Adobe products are. I love all the Adobe products for anything when I'm doing content creation of any sort, but very expensive. So if you want a good, cheap alternative, much cheaper alternative, Sony Vegas. Sony Vegas is, I think they have a software package as low as like $49 for Vegas. It'll do... For game videos, just making videos, it'll do everything you need to do. It's only once you start getting into the heavier editing that Vegas starts being less good, if that makes sense. It's only once you start, like, if I were to make the don't feeds in Vegas, it would be pretty hard to do that with the same ease that I can do it in Premiere Pro 6, as far as, like, the overlays you see and everything like that. Vegas isn't as robust in all those options as Premiere Pro, but Vegas is still really good. And out of the box, it's easier to use, much cheaper, works for 90% or probably 99% of the game videos made out there. Only get Adobe Premiere Pro CS6 or any model version. Only get any of those, if you actually have a heavy editing project, because it will take you longer to get over the initial learning curve of it. So there's also Adobe Premiere Elements, which is pretty good. It's also, I don't know if it's cheaper or more expensive than Vegas. Premiere Elements will do a lot of this stuff, but Premiere Elements and Premiere Pro are totally different programs. When I use Premiere Elements, they're totally different programs to the extent that, like, Premiere Elements has some stuff in it that I wish Premiere Pro had in it. I think it can take webcam footage. I could be wrong, but Premiere Pro won't do any of that. So there's actually stuff, totally separate programs. Premiere Elements is a good program, but I think Sony Vegas out of the box again is, for the same price, going to be just a little bit better for most people, even than Elements. So, third question, how do you advertise your channel to increase your number of viewers? I don't. I don't advertise at all. Yeah, I kind of rely on word of mouth. I kind of rely on the videos themselves doing well, so they show up to more people on YouTube. And I don't mean just like my subscribers. I mean, if the video has good metrics, if people watch more of them, if people are interested in the content, they're not immediately zoning out after the first 5 seconds because it's a scam to get you to give me your credit card or anything like that. That's kind of a... There are actually scams. That's not one of the common ones. One of the common ones is, watch this video, you can win 400 free or 4,000 free RP or 999,999 free RP. All those are scams, so those kind of videos go down on the list really quickly. So I just try to make the videos good, make sure they're appealing to the people that I need them to be appealing to, and that's all I can do. I don't have the time to advertise. So I really appreciate when people put up Reddit threads, things like that. Let me skip down to one of the League of Legends questions here. Ian, what would be your best 3 tips to learning the AD carry position? So the AD carry is talking about ranged AD carry, so Corki, Grave, Sivir, Misfortune, Ezreal, Ashe. I'm sure I'm missing a couple on that list. My 3 biggest tips, those used to be my best champions, and I rarely play them. Well, not rarely, but I play them less than 20% of the games I play now, which is, given that they're 1/5 of the players in every game, that's why I say less than 20% of the games. And I used to play them like probably 80%. So I'm not as good as I used to be, but what would be your best 3 tips to learning the AD carry position? So the first thing is learn to control your lane extension. That's huge, which is specifically where your minions are in the lane. Understand when they're going to push back towards you and when you don't need to push. Understand how you can keep minions where you want them to be. So for example, you don't want minions to get pushed up to your tower. Ideally, you want enemy minions to be just out of range of your tower in a lot of cases. The reason for that is your tower is a huge pushing thing. Anytime minions get near it, the tower does so much damage, has such a disproportionate impact on the enemy minion waves that your lane will push, and it will push pretty hard towards their tower, which can cause you to overextend unless they're also pushing really hard. And that changes dynamically. If the enemy team is pushing really hard, you need to be much more aggressive about keeping their minions pushed so they don't reach your tower. There's just stuff like that. So anyway, lane extension is huge. When you hit level 2 is huge. So sometimes it can be good to push really hard early, because then you and your support or whoever can hit level 2 a little sooner than the other guys. In some cases, you want to try an immediate gank once you hit level 2 while they're still level 1, things like that. But yeah, anyway. The second thing I'd say, pay attention to the minimap and when opponents move in and out for last hits. That's actually 2 separate things. Pay attention to the minimap. That's huge. You'll see... I don't always catch it on the minimap. I'm not a perfect player, but a lot of times you'll see me start backing off in a lane, and then, the minimap, somebody just showed up, and I noticed that, or I just caught a glimpse of something, and so I'm backing off already. That's something you really have to get in the habit of doing, is being able to pay attention to your minimap, really seeing when something's going on. And when you don't, you usually pay for it if they're smart about how they're ganking. So Anyway, moving in, and so the other part of that is watch and understand when opponents are moving in and out for last hits. So the enemy AD carry has to move in to actually last hit. And in some cases, you can't punish them because you're a shorter range champion. So if you're playing like a, what's a good example? Vayne. If you're playing a Vayne versus a Caitlyn, Caitlyn can move in for a last hit, and you as Vayne, unless you actually tumble forward, use some mana. Even if you do tumble forward, you won't necessarily get anything off. You as Vayne are going to be in not as capable of punishing Caitlyn when Caitlyn moves in for a last hit. But let's reverse that. Let's say Vayne goes in for a last hit, but you're playing Caitlyn. When you see them moving for that last hit, not only should you be paying attention to your own minions that you need to last hit, when they move for that last hit, you know that when they actually fire their shot, they're going to be standing still. That's important for any skill shots you're trying to fire. So if you're playing like Ezreal, it's important to see when people are moving in for a last hit and see if you have an opportunity to actually land your Q, if you're playing Ezreal, on them as they do that, because they have to stop briefly to actually fire the attack. But if you're playing like a Caitlyn, your auto attack, watch when they're going to move in, anticipate when they're going to move in, get yourself in position, and hit them right then. Make them pay for moving in to get that last hit. But you want to be able to get to the point where you're actually not losing your own farm for that, or at least not significantly. If you're going to totally harass them, zone them, keep them out of the lane, that's great. You can lose some CS over that because they're losing so much more. But yeah, okay, do whatever it takes. Third thing I'd say, do whatever it takes to improve your last hitting. Last hitting in lane is huge. The games I do well are the ones where I last hit well. The games where I don't last hit well, I'll tend to do worse. And I mean, I had a stream this afternoon where my CS was awful. I was playing Rumble. It was just horribly bad. Yeah. Anyway, did awful. Wasn't able to afford much. For AD carries, that's especially important. Obviously, I just gave the example of Rumble. AD carries, it's especially important because you need that gear to get that snowball effect in the game. So do whatever it takes to improve your last hitting. And I'm not saying like just learn to watch minions better. You have a choice when you're runes. So your choice is to go for armor penetration and attack damage. A lot of people will say, well, you want armor penetration, scales well later in the game. You know, it's good for that. Armor penetration really is the better thing. In the first few levels, attack damage will help you last hit. It will absolutely help you last hit. It's like, let's use Jace as an example. Jace is not somebody I recommend playing as an AD carry. He is way too strong at being a bruiser slash everything in the game. He's way too strong. He's the best champion in the game, by the way. He's way too strong at that, but he's a good example to use for this. Jace's attack damage at level 1 is abysmal. It's something like 53 or 51 or something. It's really, really, really low. So if you build a bunch of armor penetration, you're still going to have a hard time last hitting, especially if they have any sort of harass, but you're just going to miss some CS that you just can't get. So you really want to stack on some attack damage for those early levels if you happen to be playing him in lane and if you happen to really need that CS. That's the same for playing him solo top as playing him as AD carry if you happen to want to play him as AD carry. But anyway, same thing with same thing with the other AD carries. You want to get attack damage if you're having problems with last hitting. Some AD carries have more damage off the bat than others. Misfortune, for example, she has, if you get a point in her W, she does extra magic damage on each attack. So she has an easier time last hitting. Corki has an easier time last hitting because he gets, I think, 10% true damage on his. He's also got just a great attack animation, very fast projectile, just overall good. Anyway, Corki's a good example. Anyway, all I'm recommending is consider getting attack damage. I think that's something any carry who is so focused on the late game and they're getting armor penetration, but they're suffering. If you're extremely good and you're going to get those last hits regardless, get armor penetration. If you're like 99% of players, including a lot of pro players who are going to miss some CS, consider making the decision. Pro players do this too. Consider making the decision to put attack damage instead of or in conjunction with armor penetration into your runes. Same deal with masteries. You don't want to forego the bonus damage. Take as much as you need to improve your last hitting. As you get better, you won't need to like totally stack, I don't know. As you get better at the game, you don't need to stack every slot with AD. But it's still good. A lot of people do it. So, anyway. Let's see. Where did I stop with the last question here? Ron, are you guys still in the Northwest? Would be cool to see you guys at an event or something. So, yes, we are still in the Northwest. We moved from Tacoma. We're now near North Bend and Snoqualmie. I will say I prefer to be as far away from any kind of convention as possible. So, I know it's kind of weird because a lot of people really want to get to conventions. They really want to, take part in them. They really want to. A lot of the video producers really want to get those video hits. Monitor? Oh, the monitor. Oh, the monitor. Baby monitor. And yeah, a lot of video producers really want to get there because they want to get those, videos of whatever. I don't care about that. My goal, honestly, is I'm a very outdoors person. I like the outdoors. I don't go hiking every day, but I happen to just really like the outdoors. So further away I get from cities, the happier I am. Conventions just kind of annoy me. I'm sorry. We used to, when I was running Tankspot, Blizzard would send me an email for each year they were doing BlizzCon. And in that email, I had to respond to them telling them basically who's getting their all expenses paid trip to BlizzCon. So the flight, nice hotel, everything, go for the developer interviews before. Yeah, I skipped those. I just gave it to somebody else. So that's kind of how I am.
We did have tickets to BlizzCon once.
Did we? We had tickets to BlizzCon?
Yeah, once. You and I.
Why didn't we go?
Was I pregnant? Was that it? Or was that the year before? Something came up, money. Probably then.
Apparently we got tickets to BlizzCon at one point. I don't buy it.
Yeah, we were going to meet up with Logan.
Yeah, we were going to meet up with them. Well, apparently we had tickets at one point for some convention. Meaning BlizzCon. Okay, we had tickets for BlizzCon at some point, but we didn't go. Just let me finish with that. That's not to say we don't enjoy the city. We do. We live near Bellevue, Issaquah. It's 20-minute drive. We go there frequently. So I really like city, but I don't like living in the city, and I don't like spending a lot of time. Conventions just bother me. I'm sorry. I do like a lot of the cosplay. I look at the pictures of cosplay, and people put so much work into their outfits. I'm not into that myself, but it's really cool. I mean, this is really cool. You're gonna put that much, passion and work into something, and if you pull it off and it looks amazing, that's great. So,
Smell like sweat.
huh?
I hear conventions smell like sweat.
My wife says conventions smell like sweat,
Well, I can confirm it.
but she can't confirm it.
heard
She just says she hears that. So, take it for what it is. Apparently, I'm actually moving in this game. 15 meters a second. Anyway, next question. Which type of Tillamook cheese do you prefer for Mama Ciderhelm's mac and cheese? So I like sharp Tillamook cheddar. Don't get extra sharp. Don't get their vintage stuff. Just get normal, sharp. Don't get mild or medium.
Black.
Yeah, don't ever get the... You remember the black?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tillamook has these black cased Tillamook cheese bars. So if you don't know what Mama Ciderhelm's mac and cheese is, look up Mama Ciderhelm's mac and cheese. It's a video I made. It's delicious. It's the best mac and cheese you will ever have in your life. Yeah, it was delicious.
Overestimation.
Calvin, when will you have a co-op match with your wife? Not until our son grows up, probably. Or until somebody's babysitting. Main thing is we have to be on call, on hand, at any moment for our son. But, if anything, we're considering playing a game together, potentially streaming it, something like Guild Wars 2, just because we can walk away from that. One of us can walk away at some point, and we can still offer something on the stream. I can still, if she walks away, to take care of our son or put him back to sleep if he wakes up or anything.
He doesn't get sleep through the night, really.
Yeah, he doesn't yet sleep through the night. That's kind of the big thing. So anyway, we're considering something like that, but it's not going to be League of Legends, most likely, not for a long time. So Henrique's, how do I take a bunch of damage in the jungle with the same runes that, for example, the odd one takes, and he barely takes any damage? So this can be a couple things. If you have the same runes and masteries, make sure of that, because you do want to have the damage reduction out of the defensive tree, at least a few points in there. Usually 9, but you don't have to have quite that many. If you're playing the same champion and you have the same runes and masteries, a couple other things you're going to want to look out for is exactly what's getting leashed. So to be fair, I haven't really watched the odd one, but this is just a guess, an educated guess. Look at the armor that they have in-game. Look at how they're leashing, like if their mid is leashing for them. Are you getting as good of a leash from your team when you're playing, when you're getting lower on health? Watch how they're using their abilities, and how they're leveling their abilities. I always recommend, when it comes to jungling, I always recommend checking out Stonewall008's channel. So he usually has a very clear video. This is how you do this jungler the fastest. Not always the best way, depending on what you're trying to do, but usually like always the fastest. So look up the most recent video he has on the particular champion you're playing, and he'll also give the runes and masteries for that champion. Anyway, watch how they're pulling minions. So one thing that like kind of comes down to, like, I'm not a incredibly pro player, but I know how all the pro players play, or how a lot of them do. Watch junglers, and when they walk away from minions, or when they walk away from jungle monsters, they back off so they take just a little bit less damage. Just very, very small micromanagement like that is incredibly good. Watch if they have the red buff, watch when they stop damaging a certain minion because they know it will die. Again, these are things you won't really get from watching me, but a lot of these pro players are just absolutely amazing at doing this. Stonewall008, he's, again, a good one to watch because he also does these things. So there's just little movement tricks you can do if you're very quick that will reduce the damage you take. All right, let's see. Aiden, what do you think about people playing with a different meta? Example, anti-jungle or ranged AD mid like Sivir to counter the regular meta. Good or a waste of time? So you've said essentially two different things here, right? Anti-jungle is not countering the meta. It's just taking a really weird jungle into the meta. Or in a really weird champion into the jungle. That's what I meant to say. Whereas sending Sivir to mid as a ranged AD to counter, presumably a standard AP caster, that is countering the meta. One second, let me drink a little. So, countering the meta really works. And pro teams do this all the time. They counter the meta by sending people to different lanes. But they have reasons for it. So you don't want to just go into a game and say, okay, I'm going to play so-and-so at mid because I want to be different. I'm going to go, I'm going to play Caitlyn at mid, or I'm going to play Caitlyn at top. You don't want to go into the game with that mindset. You want to go into the game and say, okay, I pick this particular champion. If you're playing draft mode, I pick this particular champion to counter so-and-so in lane, and I know this is a good counter, so I'm going to send, in this case, like in your example, I'm going to send Sivir into mid lane because I know it will be a better counter than who we currently have as our AP caster mid. Now that's a little harder to actually pull off, sending an AD mid right now, because you have to wonder where your AP is going. So anyway, countering the meta is always a good thing. Things like sending a Talon to mid because he's really strong against a lot of AP casters, or things like sending a Galio mid. He is, I guess he's still technically the meta. He's very tanky, but he's still technically following the meta. But it forces the other team to change it, or it can. Anyway, there you go. So it's great when it works when you are countering the meta, but make sure you have a real reason to do it. Don't just do it for kicks. That's all I can say. So with that said, I am out of the Facebook questions that I was going to answer that I listed off before I started the stream. So let me look at some of the questions here in chat. Pro tip, if you have a red buff and a minion is almost done, run away. The red buff does damage over time. Yeah, that's right. If you have red buff, the minion's going to die from it. Just walk away, and the minion, depending on which minion it is, will not deal any more damage to you, and it will die. Counter meta, 2 top, sustain bot, assassin, AD mid. Okay. What are we seeing? Magma Chamber. Magma Chamber will never be... Magma Chamber is Dominion. They're the same thing. They morphed. Magma Chamber morphed into Dominion. What game is that in the background? X3? What build is better for Kog'maw in your perspective? So, Kog'maw. I love Kog'maw. Kog'maw's really good as an AD, and he's really good as an AP. He's been used at pro levels of play as both, tournament level of play as both. He is just an incredibly strong champion. Yeah, Kog'Maw's a fantastic champion. Kog'Maw is really a champion that you need a team that will work well with Kog'Maw to work with, or to make him amazing. He's not a champion who's just going to be amazing on his own, mainly because, I'm talking about AD at this point actually. AP can do a little bit more than AD, as long as you're using him that way. But yeah, AD Kog'Maw is really vulnerable. There you go. That's the best way I can. The drink that I drank looks like chocolate. It is chocolate milk. Isn't that great? Can Jace mid? Yes. Jace can do everything. Jace can literally do everything. But what he can't do is be AP, because AP just sucks on him. So, but he is literally the best champion in League of Legends. I'm semi-kidding when I say that. Semi. What's your opinions on Team Solomid's bragging? They're just doing it for views. He's playing X3. Any tips on how to get IP fast? Buy boosts? Buy boosts, win games before 25 minutes. Or, what was a tip I saw? Try to make the game last until the beginning of the next minute, so don't surrender if they're going to take a couple seconds longer and it'll actually reach the next minute or next 5-minute mark. I don't remember. But anyway, there's some little tip where you get just slightly more IP if you make it to the next minute in a game. So if you're like 50 seconds and you can somehow delay losing the game or surrendering the game by 10 more seconds, do it. Because you get just a little bit more IP. I believe ranged AD mid was part of the old meta, just an FYI, yes. I think ranged AD mid is going to make a comeback at some point. I really do. I'm not sure exactly how, but ranged AD mid is really strong. Really, really... AD carries have a huge disproportionate impact on the game when they're fed. And yes, they do gain a lot out of gear, but they still gain something out of levels. And mid lane is not only super safe, it's also a great place to get levels and money quickly. I think ranged AD mid will make a comeback at some point, but I also keep saying that I think Hecarim's going to be amazing and more frequently used than he is. Cider, how do you leash golems for your AD carry? Wow. You're talking about the double golems? That's something support do. I don't know the exact best way to do this, but what I've seen is, depending on who you're playing, if you're going to pull for the AD carry. So the double golem, sometimes at the beginning of the game, you'll leash for... You can do it at other points in the game too if you need to. Sometimes at the beginning of the game, your AD carry will want to kill the double golems, come into lane with just a little bit of an experience bonus. So this is what this person's referring to. And if you're leashing that, like if you're the support or if you're doing a kill lane, you've got somebody else. If you're leashing for the AD carry, you're going to either pull it back to the bush and just tank it. That's a safe spot to pull it. Or you can kite it just a little and cause it to leash back to the AD carry, and hopefully it's dead by the point it actually leashes back. So basically you either tank it or you just pull it and let it leash at some point. I don't know if there's some extremely good way of doing that beyond that, but that works. I've started hearing the Jace is OP but just overlooked in ranked. So Jace is a really strong champion. I don't really know that he's overpowered, but I do know he's an extremely strong champion. He has so many abilities, and he's got decent damage, but he's got so many abilities. He really is like Lee Sin, but almost better. Like Lee Sin has so much mobility, and Jace doesn't have as much mobility, but he has like a billion other things he does. So, yeah. I don't know. Is he overlooked in pro play? Not really. He is being used in pro stuff now. There's a few pro players who are using him. We'll see. How do you play Shen? Full tank, little AP, CDR. I don't play Shen. Anything I say about Shen will not be helpful to you guys. So, are you saying Jace can support? Yeah, absolutely. It sounds silly, but in the same sense that Leona can support, Jace can support. And I'm not just making this up. Like, again, pro players doing this. Now, I don't think it's going to be used too much at tournaments, but I think, how did I hear about this? Was it used at a tournament? Anyway, somebody can correct me on this. But yeah, Jace, think about it. Like, you look at someone like Leona. Well, what does Jace do? He gives his AD carry a great escape or a great initiate with his gate so they can move quickly, very quickly. And he's got this great slow. He can knock, just like Alistar, can knock people back away from them. Does a ton of damage. Like, just getting an E off, especially an E with a couple ranks, or a few ranks in it, is a ton of damage. Yeah. I don't know. He can debuff an opponent. He does everything, right? So, yeah, Jace can support. Now, it's more like a kill lane. It's more like having a Leona than it is like having an Well, it's a little like having an Alistar minus a healing. So it's more like a Leona. So there you go. Speaking of Lee Sin, is he still good? Yeah, Lee Sin's still good. He really is. He's a good champion, but he has been nerfed. Ciderhelm, what do you think of Victor? I don't see him used very much, and I love the champion. He's a really good champion, but he is one of those champions you don't see very much. I mean, I basically just repeated what you said. But yes, you don't see him very much, but he's a really good champion. He has a ton of... If he gets his ult off on a group of players, that's a huge amount of damage. He's got a lot of position... So his W... Is it his W, the one that... The slowing field? That's great. That's great for zone control. He's just generally really good. How long have you been playing League of Legends? So my League of Legends account was back from beta, but I didn't really play much in beta because it kept crashing on me. For whatever reason, it just crashed all the time. So I just kept playing Heroes of Newer. So 2010, mid 2010 it's when I actually really started playing League of Legends was when Sona was released. So Sona was released, I think, 1 or 2 weeks after I really started playing. And she was the first champion I bought, and that was a lot of fun. So can't tell you the exact day, but that's when it was. Cider, so far, do you like Syndra as an AP mid? I don't know. So do you like Syndra as an ability power mid? I don't know how her damage will hold up. She's got a lot of setup involved. If you see a Syndra spamming her Q, you can bet she's about to use her ult, that kind of thing. The mana cost on her Q is crazy. I really don't like that. Like, I'd rather her Q had a shorter cooldown. Maybe they could do something about the duration so there's not too many balls or something. I'd rather her Q had a shorter cooldown. Not shorter cooldown. All I'm saying is I'd rather it dealt less damage. Maybe lasted a little longer, but didn't cost... Let me think this through. What am I trying to say? The only thing I'm trying to say, I may be butchering everything else. The mana cost on Q is too high. I wish it were weaker, but could be used more consistently in lane. That's all I'm trying to say. Just a weaker Q, but more consistently usable in lane. Because I think she's potentially going to have some farm issues. And that's all. About Diana, do you think the nerf put her in the right place? I mean, balanced. I don't know. She's still a decent champion. I think balance is a lot more fluid than... Yeah. How to put this? Most League of Legends balance is about perception. And I say that it's about how the community perceives them. It's about how they're used in tournaments, how effective they are. It's not as much about data. Obviously, they do have a ton of data, but it's not quite as much about data as they lead you to believe. They'll talk about the spreadsheets and all the data points they have and all this stuff. But the fact is, champions that do really well in tournaments or champions that are just overwhelmingly good, they're the ones that get nerfed. But you look at champions like, what's a good example? I'm trying to think of one. I know there's one on the tip of my tongue here. Urgot didn't take any nerfs for a long time, and then he took huge nerfs. Urgot just lasted for, as far as I remember, Urgot lasted for a very long time, and then just suddenly took huge nerfs. Morgana takes nerf after nerf after nerf, and probably will get nerfed again, because she's a really good champion. There are just, I don't know. I don't think there's a real balance to have in a game like this. I think that you can get stuff close, but I don't think there's a whole lot of balance to be found. I don't know. How can I explain that better? The question is whether a champion has counters, and all champions that I'm aware of have counters. Yeah, all Am I at another gate? How have I gotten this far? At 15 meters a second, I'm actually going to hit another gate? This is awesome.
You should go through it.
I'm going to speed up so you guys can see this. Cider, is Graves still good? Graves is always going to be good.
8. Aaron's Nebula.
Why am I not speeding up? What's going on? What's going on? What? I'm going painfully slow. Oh well, whatever. I've been playing Swain since his last buff, and I've been doing extremely well despite a lack of experience on him. Any opinions on whether... Oh... This is the worst autopilot ever. I was flying right into it. Okay. And I've been doing extremely well despite lack of experience on him. Any opinions on whether Swain is OP or not? Healing reduction really screws Swain. That's... I won't say too much about Swain. Swain is one of a handful of champions that I really don't have the knowledge to really say where they are in the game. And I don't see them very much. But I will say, when I see a Swain, if I have healing reduction, or a good option for healing reduction, that's usually the best thing to do, because you will completely screw them. Cider, what do you think about Gragas? Is he a bit too strong, or just a good counter? He's not too strong, but he's really good. Darius. Yeah, Darius is a champion, I'd say. What to say about Darius? He's not overpowered, but I've already given you guys my opinions on Darius. I caused that whole issue with Darius. I don't know. What am I looking at? Oh. Interesting. So anyway. Is Rumble ever going to get a new skin release? Also, with Rumble's passive, when he overheats, will he ever be buffed? Since he silences himself for 6 seconds. Oh, will that ever be buffed? I don't know. And I don't really know where Rumble is, but I don't really enjoy Rumble. I played Rumble today. I didn't like it. Okay, so is he going to get a new skin? I don't know. Anyway, so I'm kind of rambly at this point. It's what, 8:10? I could play a game if I ever make it through this gate. I don't know. I don't have anything smart to say about Rumble, but I do think he's going to get a skin. I think he'll get a skin somewhat soon in the next couple months. I could be wrong. We'll see. Since they reduce the damage on items such as etc., 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 should they reduce armor to... I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do with... Hey, I made it through. No, I'm too rambly. I don't know what they're going to do about armor or damage. I don't know what they should do about armor or damage. Hey, I've got a bunch of freighters in here. cool. Wait. What are they doing? Why is it taking so much damage? This is like the safest sector in the game. Well, no, it's not. This is actually the starting sector. Also, I'm in a really super slow ship. All the angles. But yes, this is a capital ship, a very powerful capital ship. Considered by many to be the best in the game. That's why I bought it, because I wanted the best in the game. Very expensive. And very slow, and I don't actually get to control any of my weapons. I just go into combat, and as far as I know, I can't aim anything on my own. I just go into combat and something like 32 weapons plus 8 more or something. So 40 weapons just fire automatically, and it's awesome, but it's also really painfully boring because it's also a slow ship. Fisher Price.
A real one.
Yeah. Anyway, let me end this. With all the new champs out and all the great abilities, does Ashe just seem somewhat useless now? Personally, I think they need to lower Ashe's mana cost general. No, Ashe is a good champion. I've had to say this a couple times. Ashe is still played competitively. She has a weakness, and that weakness is she doesn't have a strong escape mechanism. But with her, she had a little bit of a revamp where she has, I think, better mana regen. That really helped her a lot. Ashe has a lot of AoE damage. She has incredible slowing potential, which is not something to underestimate. Her volley is essentially spammable, which has a huge impact on late-game team fights. So once she has rank 5 volley, I think it's like a 3-second cast or something, or a 3-second cooldown. Her ult is a great initiate. All I'm trying to say is, Ashe, don't underestimate her. She's still used in competitive play. Is she the best carry? No, not right now. Right now the best carries, or at least recently the best carries, have been the ones with escapes. Which is interesting. It's just like Corky Graves, Ezreal. And people talk about them, and it's not their abilities that make them good. Like, they're good. They have good abilities. They do things. But the reason they're really good, it's one common thing. They have amazing escapes. They can walk away when they're being ganked. They can, they're very safe picks. So, yeah. Why isn't Trundle played in pro level? Because other champions do him better. What game is this? This is X3. Also, this bothers me. I'm just going to say this before I actually end X3 here. So there's planet here in the background. Y'all can see it. It's all cracked up and presumably, I don't know this, but presumably it's been blown up. And it looks really awful. Like, it's just, the textures on it look really bad. It's just a very poor looking planet. In terms of, like, the modeling, just, it doesn't look good. The textures are bad. Everything's bad about it. And it's really sad because every other planet in the game seems to look amazing. At least as far as I've seen. Like, they do a great job modeling all sorts of stuff, but this looks like crap. Anyway. What are your thoughts on the RP event? RP event. They want you to buy $100 of RP. They're printing money. They're printing your money. That's what I think of it. Also, I might buy the RP. Tristana has a good escape. No, Tristana has a decent escape with a lot of problems. I mean, Tristana has a good escape, and Tristana's actually a pretty good champion. But that's where you look at, like, okay, what does Ezreal bring? What does Corky bring? They bring just a little bit more than Tristana, but Tristana has this amazing range. I don't think Tristana's bad at all. And have you ever thought about theory crafting for League of Legends? No. Well, I mean, I do a limited amount. Have you ever thought about theory crafting for League of Legends? If you're talking about math, no. And I've never really gotten into math, even in MMOs. Math is not something I'm terribly interested in. There's some mathematical concepts, So the idea of effective health, where you actually make a number out of the damage reduction you're getting out of armor and magic resist, combine that with health to come up with your effective health. That was a concept that really needed to be put out there. But as far as actually doing the legwork of the math, I'm not very good at math. I don't really like math. So if you're talking about that, no. If you're talking about like going in and researching game mechanics and all sorts of stuff, I do that all the time. Most of the majority of the don't feeds that I've made, I have found mechanics that have not been published by anyone anywhere. The wiki, I've repeatedly had to... this is one of my bigger complaints. No, not bigger complaint. This is one of my minor pet peeves, is a better way of saying it. And I've said this a few times, but the wiki is frequently wrong about mechanics. Just frequently. And I test every mechanic when I'm doing... I actually go in and like make sure that I'm not just BSing something. Because I read it somewhere. And I frequently see mechanics that people have just... they're flat out not understanding correctly, or they posted the wrong thing, or they say... doesn't get, or spell shields block it when spell shields in fact do not block it, things like that. So if you're talking about that, yeah, I do that all the time. But as far as math, no. But there are some good people doing math right now. I feel like what's the blog, Diff the Ender, and I'm not sure, I think that's Reign of Gaming. There's some pretty good stuff on there. Thoughts on Renekton? I don't have many, but he's got a really strong level 6. Like once he hits level 6, he's got a really strong. If you're not prepared, you're gonna die.
Seems like somebody like,
I did start.
but then you didn't.
Yeah, I know. Kate has a good early game, but a terrible late game. But she has a really good early game, right? I mean, if you're in a lane, if you have the opportunity to harass as Caitlyn, especially if they're shorter range, you can just rip your opponents apart as Caitlyn if you're really good with her. And that can snowball you to being really good late game, or at least keeping their carry from being really good late game. She also does decently at top, and she does well at mid, but top is actually a place you could reasonably center within the meta, even though you wouldn't build her as bruiser. There are... how to put this? Anyway... Caitlyn, you're correct, I think, in saying she has a good early game but a terrible late game, but her early game is incredible. So, the thing is, in draft, high rank stuff, you don't have to pick someone that Kate can easily harass. So, it's going to be hard to see her too often at pro level, but occasionally, I mean, I saw a stream recently where I actually saw a pro playing Kate top lane. That's why I mentioned top lane. And doing very well. So, what will you do after you stop playing League and you see yourself stopping League? I don't see... well, at some point League of Legends is going to die down. I have no idea. Video games and video game content is not the ideal future for me. And it never has been. Like, at some point I want to be able to write and design games, and that's just going to be my job. I'm not at that point yet. It's the joys of being self-employed. Cider, why do you hate Teemo? Who doesn't hate Teemo, right? What time is it? All right. What should my... I need a closing, a send-off here. Not a send-off. Wonder how I could do this. How could I do a poll? I think it'd be too hard to do a poll on YouTube. Would Bruiser Draven work top? Why would you do Bruiser Draven? I mean, it probably would work. But it's like Bruiser Vayne. Probably would work, but why would you do it? Would Nidalee be overpowered if they changed her ult to... No! Okay, so here's the question. Would Nidalee be overpowered if they changed her ult to something similar to Jace, allowing her to transform back and forth from level 1? So the answer to that is no. Nidalee's ultimate should absolutely work the way that Jace's ultimate works. It's insane that it doesn't. I mean, I get she's an older champion, but Jace has been released. There's no excuse anymore for Nidalee having to wait till level 6 to get her second set of abilities. That's very off-putting for people trying to learn Nidalee, because it takes a bit in each game before you even get a chance to use those abilities. You don't get the early game to toy with them. So absolutely, Nidalee should be changed. Would it make her overpowered? Well, she had the extra abilities, maybe, especially because she can be so annoying and so strong in the right circumstances. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of what they have currently, where you have to wait till level 6 on Nidalee. I don't play a lot of Nidalee, but like the other thing about Nidalee is her jump, her little pounce, should go in the direction of the mouse cursor, not in the direction she's facing. That's another outdated and stupid mechanic, and I know there's some people who are fans of that, and yeah, it's stupid. I'm sorry. They really need to make Nidalee more playable, and good players will still be good with her, but they need to make her more playable. Cider, you once expressed a dislike of critical hits. This isn't a question. I see what you're doing there, though. You're agreeing with me, and I like that. But yes, I think critical hits are stupid. How many things have I called stupid in this stream? I'm not sure. I don't like any kind of randomness to the degree of critical hits. I also don't like things like fear, the fear mechanic, where it's random. Or I don't know how much is random and how much is predetermined. But when you can't easily determine what's going to happen when you see someone with a fear, I think that's bad. I think those kinds of things are bad for the game. I really, really do. I think that's a problem with Draven, the randomness of his minigame, because it's not just Draven's minigame, you kind of control where it goes, but it is random where it lands. It'll land to your left or right. I think that's bad for the game because there's no need for any of this randomness in the game. The game's not going to be any worse if they strip out the randomness from it. What I don't want to see is pro-level tournaments that turn because somebody crit. And it's going to happen. To some degree, it's already happened. But I don't want some amazing tournament game to be totally destroyed because somebody with a 15% crit rate or 20% crit rate or something gets a crit and wins the game. Like, just because they're in an exchange with another AD carry, for instance, and the only thing that changed it was a crit. I think that's stupid. You shouldn't have the question of that happening. But that's just me. Nunu can go top lane, support, or jungle. What do you think is his best role? I think he does really well at top lane with the release of Athene's Unholy Grail. And I've talked about this a few times, but Mogwai's musings. I wonder if I still have it in my... Where are you, Mogwai? Depends on if it's still in my browser history or not. Here we go. Oh, that's right. How do I actually do this? How do I do this? Yeah. Anyway, here it is. This blog I read, and I really enjoyed playing Nunu solo top. But anyway, Nunu, his huge contributions are... He really screws over the enemy carry. He really screws over the... He really benefits your carry. He's got this great game-changing ultimate. He's just overall a strong champion. But anyway, this particular blog, Mogwai's Musings, .wordpress.com, showed me a pretty interesting way to play him. The main thing is you get rid of his main weakness in lane by getting an Athene's Unholy Grail. And so since that was released, he actually can be played in a particular way very effectively up top, and I liked it. So there you go. What do you think of the champions that can solo Baron early on, like Nunu or APs and Zhao? I mean, it's part of the game. It's cool. I do think it's cool, but just ward. 15-minute marker is not an unreasonable time to think about warding. And I don't think Nunu... I don't know about APs and Zhao. I have no idea how that works. But I don't think Nunu can do it right at the 15-minute marker, but maybe he can. I don't know. What point do you find mages with no escapes like Malzahar or Victor viable? Well, Malzahar and Victor are different, right? Victor doesn't have a traditional escape ability, but he does have good options, right? He's got the slowing field, and he's got the... What else does he have? What's the other thing? The silence, right? His ultimate does a brief silence, if I remember it correctly. Both of those can protect you more than Malzahar. I don't think Malzahar has the option of really easily getting away from people. He has the option of ulting them and killing them that way, but he doesn't himself get the opportunity to move while he's ulting. So, there you go. So anyway, you play them as counter picks. I don't know. I'd have to know more about Malzahar. I'm very interested in Malzahar. I'll probably play Malzahar at some point soon, but I'm not going to speak to him. But certainly you play him as a counter pick. You don't play him as a main unless you know he's going to be weak against certain people. Are you ever going to Darius top lane? I did don't feed Darius. Usually when I play a champion a lot, I don't play them for a little while. Except for Jace. I want to play Jace all the time. How would you play AD carry Jace? Well, okay, so I will occasionally play AD carry Jace. Yeah, I will occasionally play AD carry Jace. And when I do it, I don't build him as an AD carry. I still build him pretty much as a bruiser. With the intent of, we're not going to have an AD carry on our team, but I'll still bring a lot of damage to our team. I'll still bring everything that I would bring as a bruiser, and usually that will still win us the game. So I'll have some damage, but not much. I don't think you should play AD carry Jace and still go a standard build. You can sometimes unreliably get away with it when your opponents don't realize you have this enormous range issue. Which is your auto attacks are 500 range. You can do... I mean, you get your Q, but the Q's harass. You can't just reliably use the Q unless the other team's letting you do it. The EQ combo, so you get that really long range. And the rest of stuff, you have to get right in close. So if you're playing AD carry Jace, what you're really doing is you're looking for somebody who's totally out of position. You're looking for somebody who you can kill on their own with nobody else around them. In team fights as AD carry Jace, you put yourself in such a vulnerable position if you don't have much survivability items, because you can't really just go in, switch stances, Q into everybody, E people, do everything you're going to do that you can do when you play Bruiser. Bruiser Jace winds up doing a lot more in teams. And I don't mean just Bruiser. There's very specific builds that I prefer. I really like getting things like Glacial Shroud. I really like Frozen Mallet. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I really like getting a Last Whisper. I very rarely ever get a Bloodthirster. Very rarely ever get a Infinity Edge. Never get a Phantom Dancer. So really pretty bruisery, but still, you're still going for damage items. Anyway, yeah, Jace doesn't have reliable range burst to be an AD carry. Yeah. Cider, what can I learn by buying your book? Everything about the game that is not champion specific. I do have all the don't feeds, the transcripts edited and formatted and put into the book, but it's really, the ebook is all about the game itself, Summoner's Rift, jungling, champion roles, goes into builds and stuff, but it's not on a champion by champion basis. It's on a role by role basis. Goes into a lot of the items, goes into tips, tricks, how stats work, getting started in the game. If there's a lot of stuff, and like a lot of the pro stuff you see playing, I'm gonna get an addition to it soon. But yeah. All right. 8:30 is getting late. I got to go to bed in some amount of time here. So, too late to start a game. I think the questions are sort of dying down here. So I'm going to go ahead and end this stream. I appreciate you guys watching. I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. And have a wonderful afternoon, wonderful evening, wonderful morning. And goodbye.